Wherever you are on your road to retirement, we're here to help you stay on course. Welcome to Mason Street Retirement Insights, the show dedicated to helping you plan your financial future.
What is your biggest concern? People are very focused on the amount of money that they have saved, but it's really about the income that we generate. Income is what's going to drive lifestyle. And so the income strategies that we utilize are what's key.
And now, here's your host, Sean Mason.
And welcome into Mason Street Retirement Insights. My name is Casey, back again with financial advisor Sean Mason, helping you sort through the rules, the risks, and all the decisions that really matter when it comes to your retirement. Sean, how we doing, my friend? Great to see you.
I'm good, Casey. Happy to be hanging out with you again, as usual.
Me as well. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I'm excited for us to get into our show today, Sean. You know better than anyone that retirement can feel a lot like a game with a lot of moving parts, and sometimes it's hard to know if you are making the right call. So that's why you're here. Sean is here each and every week to help you see the field more clearly and hopefully avoid some costly missteps along the way. So as we're getting into it, I want you to just go ahead and jot down our phone number quickly. 559-847-0039. And I want you to keep that number handy because Sean has set aside a limited number of spots this week for his introductory retirement planning assessment. Now, this is exclusive just for our radio listeners, and Sean is going to do this for you completely complimentary if you've got $500,000 or more saved for retirement. So we want you to take advantage while we've got this space available. 559-847-0039. This is a chance for you to sit down with a local professional. Sean is right here in Fresno, and you can ask him your questions, and you can hopefully gain a clear picture of where you stand when it comes to retirement. So one more time, that number for you, it's 559-847-0039. Or you can also find us online. We are at Mason Street, retirementinsights.com. Just click that contact tab, fill out your information for us. Make sure you say you heard us on the radio. That's an important step, and then we'll be happy to reach out directly to you. All right, Sean, as we get things rolling today, I wanted to start with something that I think a lot of people right on that retirement edge have probably been hearing and even wrestling with this. The CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, he recently offered advice for people who are on the edge of retirement. And when he mentioned diversification, it was not just about spreading your money out among different stocks or sectors. He also talked about investing in and out of the market. So I was reading through this and I was wondering, Sean, if you could explain what Jamie really means by this to us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jamie Dimon, he's been around a long time. So, the industry does keep an open ear for him. And he makes some good points here, probably obvious to many of us. But diversification is, of course, foundational in risk management. But to your question, Casey, Jamie seems to be referring to stocks and stock funds when he says the market. And I think most of us would consider other asset classes being part of the market. Bonds, REITs, buffer funds, and others.
Well, yeah, I think that's an important distinction because a lot of people hear the market and they automatically think, stocks only. So when you're talking about looking beyond just stocks, how do you decide which of those other asset classes even make sense for somebody?
Well, yeah, and for sure they should all be on the table. Just depending on the current economic environment. But, part of this will depend on your strategy. If you subscribe to more of a buy and hold allocation, then equal weighting into multiple asset classes is going to be key. But then on the other hand, you might over or underweight certain sectors if you're paying attention to the current events.
Okay, so this really isn't a one-size-fit-all decision. Some people are more comfortable staying steady and others are paying closer attention to what's happening around them. So how much does that come back to risk tolerance?
Well, regardless of your strategy, risk tolerance has to be front and center in designing the investment portfolio. And there's two types of risk tolerance. That which is more pragmatic, it's based on math. And then the other being emotional, or how we feel about the roller coaster ride. And both are equally as important to serve quality of life.
Well, I think the emotional side that you mentioned is interesting because on paper, something might make sense, but living through it can feel very, very different. So talk to us about how you help people figure out where they really fall on that spectrum.
Yeah, well, we never want to put ourselves in a position of forced selling because of income needs. If a holding is down and we have to sell because we need the money, that's mathematically just like paying a penalty. So the strategies you use to reduce that risk will determine which asset classes you're investing in.
Well, okay, let's talk about what that looks like in practice then when you're trying to reduce that kind of risk. Where do you typically start the conversation with your clients?
Well, they might be thinking that bonds are going to be their saviors. If you're willing to forego some growth and you're happy with 3 or 4% interest, on the other hand, you might decide bonds are your savior. If you're willing to forego some growth and you're happy with 3 or 4% interest, you might even get some appreciation value if interest rates go down. But bonds haven't been real productive in the last several years. We've actually leaned towards fixed indexed annuities as a bond replacement. They have strong guarantees, protecting the principal from market losses, with the potential for reasonable rate of return based on increasing index values.
Okay, and then for somebody who still wants a little more growth potential?
Well, if you're looking for more growth potential, then you might start choosing structured notes or buffered funds. These strategies can help reduce your downside exposure while capturing more of the upside. Also think about dividend stocks. They can also be used to hedge against market volatility. They're usually the staples or non-discretionary category, and consumers are usually more focused on the essential products and services during those recessionary times. So these companies can tend to be more resilient. It's also important to identify those companies that have proven to pay the dividend when their stock prices devalue. That dividend can serve as the growth rate while prices recover, and they're also helpful if you need to take distributions for income.
Okay, so Sean, if somebody is hearing all of this and they're realizing that they might be over-concentrated in one area, what's a smart first step that they should be taking?
Well, I'm going to suggest that they come in and have a discussion with us. There's so many different strategies, and there's part of it is what you're trying to accomplish. And I find when people come in that what they're trying to accomplish, part of it can be a little blurry. They're hearing a lot of information, they're hearing a lot of noise out there, and it's just really important to try and kind of sift through all the noise and get to what's important for your individual situation.
So, okay, our key takeaway from discussing, what Jamie Dimon was saying when he talks about being in and out of the market, would you say it's fair to say that it's less about timing and it is more about structure?
For sure, it's more about structure, and that was really well put, because it should not be about timing. That's really tough. Look, nobody has a crystal ball. You don't know what the timing is. Yes, you can be paying attention to current economic environment and the data, and you can work on probabilities, which we want to do. We always want to work on probabilities. We're going to win in the end if we do that. But the timing is almost impossible to call. So you need structure to kind of handle whatever the environment might throw at you. And so I mentioned that I would suggest that people come in and have a discussion. I think it's a great opportunity for people to come in and get some insight into how all these things work together. And so we're going to invite our listeners to come in for a retirement planning assessment. Taxes, estate planning, distribution strategies, all those different elements that you have to be considering. And, for those people that have accumulated $500,000 or more, and I say $500,000 or more because that's really when our strategies can be impactful. But for our first 5 callers, we're going to do this retirement planning assessment with no cost. I think it's that important for you to come and have it done. So give our team a call at 559-847-0039. Our team will find a convenient time for you to come into the office or meet by Zoom.
559-847-0039. If you've got $500,000 or more saved for retirement, like Sean said, that's when you really get the most power out of his introductory retirement planning assessment. We are standing by right now. We're ready to take your call. We can get you set up to talk with Sean. You can do it on the phone from the comfort of your own home. You can do it on Zoom, or you can come right on into his office here in Fresno. It's whatever you're comfortable with, but that first step is to give us a call now to secure your spot. 559-847-0039, or you can also find us online. We are at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. Okay, I love that conversation because it's a reminder that diversification is bigger than just what you own. It's also how and when you access your money. And Sean, that actually sets up a perfect next conversation I want to have with you, because There's another kind of diversification people don't think about until they're close to retirement, and that's tax diversification. We've talked a lot about the benefits of Roth conversions on this show, but the question is, when should you do it? We've got financial author Sean Mullaney talking about this on Morningstar recently, and he says there's a sweet spot and that it's ages 66 through 69. Let's take a listen.
So these 4 years, the world tends to be our oyster. And during these 4 years, we have a high standard deduction. And we now have the senior deduction. Now that's quote unquote temporary for 4 years. We'll see if that is really temporary or not. But regardless, these 4 years tend to be the best Roth conversion years because we don't have required income. We could delay Social Security. We're not managing for premium tax credit. These are the 4 years I think most retirees should be most thinking about Roth conversions.
So, Sean, I'm wondering, is it really that simple? What are the most common mistakes people make when they try to handle Roth conversions on their own?
Yeah, it's really good that we're talking about this. It's tax season. It's on people's mind. We're all looking back at last year, wondering if there was anything we could have done better. Aside from IRA contributions, there's not a lot you can do after December 31st. So tax planning is key.
Well, and I think that's an important distinction. So I'm curious when people are coming in with that, did we mess up last year feeling that people tend to have? What should they actually be focused on instead?
Yeah, and part of that planning is determine what your true goal is, what's important or what's most important. Is it saving as many tax dollars this year or is it saving as many dollars over your lifetime? Or making sure that when you pass what's left, it goes to who you care about and not to the government. When I ask people, they come to the office and I ask them that question. After thinking about it for a minute, they always say, my lifetime and my kids' lifetime, as little to the government as possible. And Roth conversions can be a powerful strategy in reaching that goal. But it's not for everyone. In some situations, conversions may actually put you in a worse position.
Well, I think that's an important point, too, to mention, Sean, because I think people hear that word Roth and they assume it's automatically the right move for them to make. But what can go wrong when somebody tries to handle this on their own?
Well, and Roth's strategy is more advanced than just common sense. In most scenarios, there's a specific amount of tax-deferred money that should be converted to reach that maximum benefit. And then the number of years spread out for those conversions, again, will be specific to reach that maximum benefit. And Casey, there's several things to consider in order to get this right. Social Security timing, pensions, how much taxable money is available. The biggest culprit is actually required minimum distributions or RMDs. For many families, they cause the most havoc on the tax plan.
And that loss of control, I think, is what really surprises people, isn't it?
Yeah, because they force us to lose control of our tax brackets. R&Ds can cause more taxation on Social Security. They can increase Medicare premiums. And when we lose our spouse, our taxes can double. It's called the widow's tax. And those Roth conversions can significantly reduce the effects of the required minimum distributions. And Sean refers to, the Roth conversion sweet spot. What did he say? I think 66 to 69.
Yeah.
And for sure, that could be a sweet spot for some people, but it's not going to be the sweet spot for everyone. It just depends on the situation, depends on the scenario. It seems to work out different for everybody when you're taking into consideration all the different elements that have to go into those calculations. Mm-hmm. It can come out anywhere.
So I'm curious, Sean, what you look at first to make sure the conversion amount fits into somebody's overall plan. Is there a spot where we start?
Yeah, we're looking, it's the whole picture, right? It's not anything individually that we have to consider. We have to understand what the pensions look like. We have to understand Social Security amounts. How much money is in IRA or 401k positions, that tax-deferred position? How much taxable money there is that we have to work with is going to play a part in that. It also is about, what you're trying to accomplish. Some people are trying to accomplish getting more spendable dollars out of their resources throughout their lifetime. Some people are trying to accomplish making sure that they pass as much to the kids without foregoing a lot to the federal government. So, there's a lot of elements to it.
Well, and I'm wondering if you have an example of a real life client that you work with on a Roth conversion. Maybe they were in this sweet spot of 66 to 69. Maybe they weren't, but I'm wondering if you could walk us through a real life client where this Roth conversion really helped them out in the long run.
Yeah, and there's several of them, but so let's see, Richard and Beth, they came out about 6 weeks ago, and they're 64 and 62 years old, and they're planning on retiring in 4 years. They've got some good pension that's going to come in when they retire. They've got strong Social Security. They've got a couple million in tax-deferred accounts. And they've been listening to the show for a while, and they figured out that they're probably going to have a tax problem. They're going to need, in addition to the pension and Social Security, they're going to need about $3,000 a month net out of their 401ks or IRAs. They're concerned about RMDs. They've been hearing a lot about the effects of RMDs. Part of the problem that they're concerned about is that $3,000 a month is going to fall into the 22% tax bracket. So they want to see if we can eliminate that. And so after doing some work, after creating some comprehensive planning and testing Roth conversions, and there's multiple strategies that we tested, but we ended up positioning an annuity. And this particular type of annuity is designed specifically for Roth conversions. We can actually put the money into the annuity and do the Roth conversions inside the annuity. This is a guaranteed income, a guaranteed lifetime income annuity that's going to generate $3,000 a month guaranteed for the rest of their life. But the key is it's going to be tax-free, so it's not going to fall in to that 22% tax bracket. And then they're still concerned about the rest of the 401k money, especially when RMDs come at their age 75. So we started a 4-year Roth conversion strategy so that we completely eliminate those RMDs. So huge benefit to them, huge tax savings. I think that if projections work out, that they're going to probably save over $250,000, $300,000 in taxes over their lifetime.
Well, and the key there too is, Sean, they incorporated the help of a professional. They did not try to tackle this on their own, and look where that got them. That's incredible. 559-847-0039. If you're anywhere near that retirement window and you've heard about Roth conversions, but you're not 100% sure when to do them or how much to convert or how it all goes down, this is a great time to get a second set of eyes on your plan. 559-847-0039. Sean has set aside a limited number of spots on the calendar for our listeners with $500,000 or more saved for their retirement for your very own introductory retirement planning assessment. A chance to sit down, ask questions, and make sure the decisions that you're considering actually fit your overall retirement strategy. So to get started, all you got to do, pick up the phone, give us a call, 559-847-0039, or visit us at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. Well, and that's why this can get tricky fast, Sean, because on paper it can sound simple, but in real life, we know one little misstep can create a tax problem that you did not see coming. And it's a good reminder that retirement planning is not just about running the numbers. It's about making people feel clear. It's about making people feel in control and confident, really, in the decisions that they're making, which brings me to something completely different that was in the news this week, but I think it connects to more people than people realize. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Sean. Uber, the rideshare service, they have a new feature called Women Preferences. And this allows women riders to request female drivers. And it also lets women drivers of Uber choose whether they only want to pick up women passengers. Now, Uber says this change came directly from women asking for more comfort, more control, and choice around safety and trust. So this got me thinking, isn't this the same thing that many women are asking for in their retirement planning? So I'm wondering, Sean, if you can talk to us about how you make sure that your female clients feel heard and informed and confident about the plan that they're relying on. What's your approach here?
Yeah, well, I have an approach, but I will say that I'm really happy for the ladies out there really trying to take control of this situation.
Me too. I'm all for this.
Yeah, me too. I know there's situations happening out there. So way to be heard and try and force some change. But this is an area that's really close to me. Many of you know my story. It's because of my mom that I do what I do and that I'm so passionate about our cause. My dad was subject to Agent Orange, in Vietnam, and he passed early. And so I had to help this very powerful woman, who knew very little about the financial side of things, but was absolute in what she wanted to accomplish and the lifestyle that she wanted to live.
Well, and I think that's an important distinction that you mentioned, Sean, because she knew what she wanted, even if maybe she didn't feel fluent in the financial language per se.
Well, and she surely did. And I've been very fortunate to have that experience. It's served me well, for sure. But I've found over the years that, and I'm not trying to suggest that women are all the same. In fact, we're all unique, but we all have similarities too. And I find women to be kind of more focused on what they want to accomplish, the relationships they want to enhance, maybe the causes they want to support, the bucket list, and then how to get there. Where men are usually more focused on the details of how to get there.
And I believe that why is something that you really enjoy uncovering with your clients, right?
Yeah. I mean, the conversation's different, and I love that dynamic because I really do enjoy the why about people, why something is important. And I find that discussion to be deeper with women. And it doesn't have to be single or married. Yeah, the circumstances are different, but that same passion is inherent.
Well, so let me ask you this. When a woman comes into your office, Sean, she sits down with you for the first time, what kind of signals are you looking for? Or the questions, what are you asking her that help you understand what she really needs to feel secure and in control of her retirement plan? What are you seeking out first?
Well, I'm really trying to help her become comfortable is the key there. A lot of women, when they come in, if they're single, they're coming in by themselves. They haven't been able to bounce ideas off of a spouse or somebody else. And so they're in a little bit different situation. But look, the women that come in and they come in with their spouse, sometimes they're in this position to where they feel like they aren't understanding as much. Maybe their husband had took more of the position of managing finances up until that point, and they just kind of feel like they don't understand things as well. But I know this, it's just as important to them. And so trying to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident and talking with them, trying to get them to express what's important to them. That's what I'm trying to get to, because once we understand, both of us, once we understand what's important, now we can get to it and we can start to talk about the things that will really matter, the strategies that are possible, what's possible in life. They start to dream and they start to recognize that this is all really good. We just got to get to do some planning. So I really encourage you to give us a call and come in and have a discussion with us. I mean, I really want to talk with you about what you want to accomplish. This next chapter that we call retirement, you deserve for the lifestyle to be what you expect it to be. You've worked all these years. And I just think discussing it, talking it out, and then maybe even going as far as implementing some recommendations that I might have for you might really help you put yourself in a better position. You never know. Maybe we find or identify some areas that we can actually help you, that we might be able to implement for you to help improve your position as well.
559-847-0039 is the number to do it. And that's really what all this comes back to, Sean. People don't just want numbers. They want to feel comfortable. They want to feel heard, and they want to feel confident about the plan that they're relying on. And that's exactly what Sean and his team focus on with their clients every single day, meeting you where you are, answering your questions, and helping you make those decisions that actually fit your life. So if our show today made you think, I should probably take a closer look at my retirement plan, this is a great opportunity for you to do just that. 559-847-0039. Sean has set aside a limited number of openings this week for his complimentary introductory retirement planning assessment. This is just for our radio listeners. Absolutely no obligation. It's just a conversation. 559-847-0039 is what you need to dial if you've got $500,000 or more saved for retirement. And when you dial that number, it's going to connect you with one of our Mason Street teammates, and they will then help you set up a time to connect directly with Sean. I want to remind you, too, that he is local. He's a Fresno man, so he knows this retirement landscape locally, which is so, so important. So the time to call is right now, 559-847-0039. Or if it's easier for you, just head online to MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com and click the contact tab to get started. We'll give you a few minutes now to make that call while we take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Lots more still ahead here on Mason Street Retirement Insights. We'll be right back.
There was a time when the answer was
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
the question, how much is a lot of money? Think about this. During the 80s, there were about 500,000 millionaires in the U.S. Today, there are over 18.6 million. There are millions of millionaires. The point is this. If you've saved $1 million for retirement, congratulations. But even if you haven't, that's your fortune. Whether you carry that label of middle-class millionaire or not, Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management can show you how to take those hard-earned dollars and create years of retirement happiness. When you do the math on your retirement, it's more about the number you get per month than the amount you've saved. Call Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management for your complimentary retirement review. 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com. Want to retire like a millionaire? Call Mason Street Wealth Management today.
You have found Mason Street Retirement Insights. My name is Casey, and I am here with my buddy Sean Mason, president of Mason Street Wealth Management right here in Fresno, asking for his ideas on things that you can be working on as you get closer to your retirement. As you are listening today and you've got questions, want to remind you of our phone number. That's 559-847-0039. You can schedule some time to sit down with Sean for that introductory retirement planning assessment. 559-847-0039. Or we are also online. That website's MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. All right, let's dive into it, Sean. Like I said, retirement is drawing closer for Gen Xers. The oldest in this group are now 60. But an article I saw this week at usatoday.com was titled, For Gen X, Retirement Bites. It said that Gen Xers don't think they've saved enough for retirement. Gen Xers wish they had started saving sooner. They fear outliving their savings. And they are also worried about a stock market crash because they lived through the Great Recession. So, Sean, with the oldest Gen Xers now just 5 to 10 years from retirement, what do you say when they confront you with the uncertainties that they have about their retirement?
Yeah, right. And I read that article too. I don't know that. Oh, and by the way, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm on the older end of the generation. But I don't think these concerns are necessarily limited to any specific generation. Through the 22 years of working with people on their financial situation, I've learned that we go through phases of concerns based on our age. And most of us, somewhere in our late 40s, maybe early 50s, we start to recognize there will be another chapter, and we call that retirement, probably because we're watching our parents in retirement. And Gen Xers, they just happen to be in this phase right now. They're reaching out to us every day for consultation because of those concerns you mentioned. And for good reason. It's essential to know how long your savings will last and how taxes and the market are going to affect your income that you generate from your savings. Mistakes in projecting inflation can significantly reduce your lifestyle or put you in jeopardy of running out of money too early. So there are many elements you have to plan for.
Yeah, I know that these are conversations that you're having every single day in your office, Sean. And I think as the generations age, needs change. So I'm curious what that is when it comes to the Gen Xers that you are working with. What's the biggest factor that differentiates them from your baby boomer clients?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we're in a really unique period right now. We call it the Great Wealth Transfer. It means that, baby boomers, that generation actually holds the majority of the wealth in the country. And they're reaching the age to where they're going to start, and they already have started, passing those dollars on to their kids who are the X generation. And that's going to continue into the millennial generation. It's projected that it's about or maybe north of $120 trillion over the next 20 years that'll be passed on to these next two generations. I was talking with Dave and Jen just last week, and I asked them, and we met for the first time, and I asked them what their concerns are. And Dave brought up something really interesting. He said, navigating inheritance. And I thought that was brilliant how he kind of framed the process of inheritance and estate planning. They're going to inherit several $1 million. And as we went through in discussions, we figured out that, their parents, who they're going to be inheriting money from, they might not necessarily have everything set up to make sure that everything passes and transfers efficiently. And so we actually scheduled their parents in addition to them, to come in and have some discussions and just make sure that everything is sitting right. It's projected that through this great wealth transfer, there's going to be billions of dollars lost because of planning mistakes and just poor transfer strategies. And the beneficiaries of those losses are going to be federal and state governments. So we certainly didn't sign up for that. I can't say enough how important having an estate plan in place is. It can be the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes. And some people, depending on the situation, might just need a simple living trust. And then there's other situations where we might require multiple trusts and multiple strategies. But I encourage our listeners to get counsel and be sure to think about your parents as well. And I should note that this is one of those things we tend to procrastinate on. But that's not a good idea, especially in this situation. We all know life can change overnight.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And we know that these aren't fun conversations to have, Sean, but they are so, so important. They're so necessary. The last thing you want is for your loved ones to be left with a mess on top of grieving. You really want to have it all planned. You want to have it all set in place because you mentioned people can lose so much money to the federal government, to the state government over very avoidable mistakes. So I'm curious if you can talk to us about maybe the biggest errors that you see people make when it comes to estate planning and how we can kind of avoid this.
There's a lot of different errors that people make, and it's all based on the situation. But, estate planning is really about being heard, making sure that you have a voice so that when you become incapacitated or you pass, that what you wanted to have happen with your stuff actually really happens. And so that's really got to be written down. There's a specific order in which that has to be done. So I encourage people to get counsel on that. And I want to invite you to come into our office and have a discussion. We'll talk about your situation and some ideas of what you might want to accomplish and any concerns you have. And we'll see if we might have any recommendations that will help you best position yourself. So give our team a call at 559-847-0039. And for our first 5 callers, we're going to provide you with your own individual financial planning assessment, investment strategies, income modeling, those estate planning strategies we've been discussing. All the elements you need to be considering to ensure you live that retirement style you're expecting.
Yeah, we have opened up those 5 spots on the calendar just for our radio listeners today with $500,000 or more saved for retirement. So give us a call right now. Let's set up a time for your initial phone conversation with Sean. This is a no-fee, no obligation initial step in your planning process. So again, that number to reach us, it's 559-847-0039. If you are 5 to 10 years from retirement, this is where you are really going to see the power of this kind of planning really take effect for you. We want to show you what Mason Street Wealth Management can do for you. So let's put a time on that calendar for your initial assessment with Sean. 559-847-0039 or MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. All right, Sean, so we just talked about what Gen Xers are worried about when it comes to retirement, and their fears are pretty normal, it sounds. According to a recent study I saw by Allianz, nearly half of retirees are anxious about spending their savings. But what's one way to overcome that? Financial planner Kevin Lum says we should look at an income annuity.
Annuitized income won't maximize wealth, but it can maximize spending confidence. The average person with an annuity spends twice as much money as someone with a similar portfolio invested in the market. Now, the portfolio owner ends up richer, but the annuity owner feels more secure, even if they end up with less money.
So I thought this was very interesting, Sean. I wanted to chat with you about it. Have you seen this with some of the clients who come in and see you at Mason Street Wealth Management?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a really important dynamic, how people feel when they come to that realization that they don't have the paycheck anymore. I recognize, and I'm generally speaking, but I recognize a stark difference between the families we started working with before they retired and the families we meet after they retired. There's often a sort of uncertainty, concern, a feeling of not knowing in people when they retire without a comprehensive retirement plan, and understandably so. And the result is usually that fear of spending. It's one of the greatest injustices I see. We work all of those years, they deserve a certain quality of life, and instead they live less than. If you know my story, you know why I'm so passionate about what I do. I watched my mom suffer with the same feeling, and I had to fix it. When families go through our financial planning assessment, we use a specific methodology, and it's called RISA, Retirement Income Style Awareness. It really helps me in the planning phase, but more importantly, the family I'm working with, it helps them to identify the income strategy that will give them the most spendable income, but more important, give them the peace of mind that their lifestyle will be as they expected without worry. And for most of us, that's the goal, a stress-free retirement with the lifestyle we expect. I've found that when people have clarity in where their income is coming from, they'll feel confident in spending that income.
So you mentioned RISA, Sean, and I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit more about how RISA works and how it can help people who maybe are a little nervous about spending in retirement, or if you have any recent examples of clients that you've worked with who this methodology has helped them end up spending more and living that quality of life that they're used to.
Yeah, it's and the RISA is really a really powerful tool that we use. It really helps us dial down into who somebody is and what they want to accomplish. There's risk in different income strategies. And you've got to figure out what type of risk each individual person and family is willing to take. I was meeting with Steve and Carol. I was meeting with them for the first time, and this was, 6 or 7 weeks ago. And Carol began to explain to me that she was really concerned about not being able to do the things that she had hoped to do in retirement, and actually things that she and Steve had dreamed of together in doing. And she went on to explain that the reason for that is Steve is so worried about running out of money that he's not allowing them to spend any of the nest egg that they have accumulated. And Casey, it's more common than you can imagine. And that type of fear affects the whole family. I find that when somebody has comprehensive financial planning, it can really change things. So we decided together that we would design a comprehensive financial plan for them. And as we walk through the RISA methodology, that retirement income strategy, it was really neat to see. You could see Steve, how he changed the way he felt. We used some of their savings to position a lifetime guaranteed income. That's what Kevin was referring to. A lifetime guaranteed income to supplement their Social Security. And then we also positioned a long-term health care strategy. And those strategies really gave them the confidence that their necessities would be funded throughout their lifetime. And so that also gave us confidence in utilizing some of their money in the market in some strategically positioned asset classes so that they could use those dollars to fund lifestyle and their bucket list. And it ended up being a lot of fun. As we went through that, you could watch Steve gain clarity, and he actually started to ask us to model in additional lifestyle spending. And then to look over at Carol and see her smile with such a joy was just so priceless. In fact, Carol called me last week and she was telling me how they were just in the middle of planning an African safari trip for next year. And so it's just another example of how comprehensive financial planning can really change life for people.
Absolutely. I'm sitting here thinking about our listeners who are hearing a success story like Steve and Carol working with you, or they're hearing Kevin Lum's advice that we played a little bit earlier, and maybe they are now considering an annuity as part of their retirement plan. What advice would you give them, Sean, before they sign on the dotted line? What questions should they be asking before they commit to something like this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Make sure that you understand all the ins and outs of the particular structure that you're looking into, and recognize that there are a lot of there's dozens of companies out there, A-rated companies that offer these annuities with guaranteed incomes, and they all have different pricing. So you really want to do the work to figure out which company is going to be the best fit for you. You got to work with a professional on this, and it doesn't cost you anything to do that. So definitely find a professional that you can work with. We would be happy to help you with that. So give us a call, and our team will set up a time to have a discussion about that.
Yeah, if you've got questions about how guaranteed income could fit into your retirement plan, we have opened up those 5 spots on Sean's calendar for our radio listeners today. 559-847-0039 is the number to dial. And it all begins with that initial phone conversation with just you and Sean to talk about your questions, your concerns, what you're worried about when it comes to your retirement income. He'll then share with you his ideas on how he and the team might be able to help. And then we'll continue that conversation as far as building you a plan and all the other things that you've got to consider for your retirement. 559-847-0039 is the number to dial right now. And quick reminder, this is an opportunity for our listeners with $500,000 or more saved for retirement, and space is limited. So let's act fast. Go ahead, give us a call, 559-847-0039, or online at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. Scroll down to the bottom, plug in your info, and we'll have a Mason Street teammate reach out directly to you to get connected. All right, Sean, I mentioned it at the top of the show, but celebrities, they are just like us. I want us to hear from former NFL star quarterback Cam Newton. He is now on ESPN's First Take, and he says one of the biggest money mistakes that pro athletes make is failing to understand how their income will be taxed. Let's take a listen to Cam.
See, the thing is, in one demographic, from a W-2 to a W-9, right, you're writing off what you spend. But people don't realize, as an athlete, you're a part of the 1%. So not only do you get state tax, Chicago, Illinois, you're getting federal tax. Every state that you play in, you get taxed with those states. So, boy, how do you spend to blow $30 million? Taxes.
So we know, Sean, that so many retirees also do not understand how their income will be taxed once they stop working. So I'm curious if you can talk about what that can include, and how do you come up with a workable plan that can help mitigate taxes for your clients?
Yeah, for sure. And I spent a lot of years watching Cam. He was a lot of fun. And this is the first time I've heard him, but he sounds exactly like he played. It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Goes hand in hand.
It really does. But tax planning is one of those necessary evils, so boring, but can play such a huge part in a family's lifestyle. And for most of the families we see, taxes will be their biggest lifetime expense. And as unique as we all are, we all have a very common goal, which is to generate the most number of spendable dollars throughout our lifetime and make sure that whatever's left goes to who we care about and not who we don't, who is typically the government. And I like to start the tax discussion with a particular question that most people haven't thought about. And kind of think about what is most important, the amount of taxes you pay this year or the amount of taxes you pay over your lifetime. Tax professionals can be very good at what they do, focus on tax mitigation in the current year. But if you want to save as many tax dollars as possible over your lifetime, that takes advanced tax planning. And the earlier you get started implementing long-term strategies, the more taxes you can save. And it all starts with tax diversification, positioning savings to take advantage of the different types of tax treatment.
Okay, so walk us through that if you can. What does positioning our savings properly look like? How do we get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we're working, we have very little control over where our income comes from. Typically our paycheck, or, if we have a business profits. But when we retire, if we positioned properly, we have a lot more control over where our income comes from. And that can allow us to control the tax brackets our income falls into. Imagine if you had some of your money in a tax-deferred account. That's your 401ks, 403bs, IRAs. That's the money we pay full taxation on when we pull it out of the account. And then if you have some of your money in a Roth account, that money is tax-free when we pull it out of the account. And then third, some of your money in a taxable account, this is your regular money you saved in your savings account or brokerage account. We have to pay taxes on the realized gains every year, whether we pull it out of the account or not. And in this account, tax treatment is based on the type of investment, which allows for additional tax strategy. If you have money positioned in these different types of accounts, you can control your tax brackets by withdrawing the right amount from each account. And the tax savings can be significant over a lifetime and sometimes even bigger for your beneficiaries.
Okay, so as we are talking about positioning our money correctly going into retirement to set ourselves up for a more optimal tax situation, what types of strategies are we talking here, Sean? What can we be implementing to position money in these different types of accounts?
Yeah, and there are many of them. And it's important to note that each scenario is unique. And so individual strategies or combinations of strategies are going to be different for each scenario or each situation. For example, we might choose to move money from our tax-deferred account, 401k, IRAs, over into a Roth account. That's called a Roth conversion. For one scenario or for one situation, it might be prudent to convert $300,000 and to convert those dollars not in 1 year, but maybe over the course of 3 years. But then we might look at another situation and it would be prudent to convert $500,000, and that might take place just over a couple of years. So it really depends on the situation. You also want to be aware of tax treatment in a taxable account, and it's really important to recognize that in your after-tax account, the investments that you have could be treated different from a tax perspective. Think about any revenue, so interest from bonds, dividends from stocks. That would be similar to having a rental property and generating rental income. Investment interest, investment dividends in a taxable account, those are going to be taxed as ordinary income. So you might think about utilizing those types of investments that produce interest and dividends. Think about utilizing those types of investments in a tax-deferred account, because you're going to have to pay that ordinary income tax anyway when you start pulling those dollars out. And stock or equities, that would be similar to owning the rental property. And that is not generating revenue, that is generating appreciation. So when you have stock in your taxable account, you're not having to pay taxes on the gains until you actually sell those stocks. So that's a really good investment to think about utilizing in that taxable account. And when you sell that stock or when you sell those equities, as long as you've held on to them for at least a year, those gains are going to be taxed as long-term capital gains, which is a lot more favorable than the ordinary tax.
So clearly a lot of factors to be considered when it comes to your taxes in retirement, and they all affect one another, it sounds like, and it can be a snowball effect. So that's why I think it is so important to incorporate the help of a professional sooner rather than later to make a tax plan for your retirement. And that is exactly where Sean and his team come in. We have got a teammate standing by off the air, ready to answer your call and help you schedule a time for that initial conversation with Sean. It all starts with this conversation. 559-847-0800. 0039 is what you'll dial. This is a no fee, no obligation initial step in the planning process, and it's available for our listeners with $500,000 or more saved for retirement. 559-847-0039. If you are within 5 to 10 years of retirement and have been saving for retirement, this is where you're really going to see the power of this kind of planning take effect. And Sean and the team are ready to show you how they might be able to help you. So be one of our first 5 to call, reserve a time for your initial assessment directly with Sean. 559-847-0039. Or, of course, you can find us online if that's easier for you. We are at Mason Street, retirementinsights.com. You'll just scroll down, fill out your information. Make sure you say you heard us on the radio, and we'll have one of our Mason Street teammates reach out directly to you. 559-847-0039 or Mason Street retirementinsights.com. All right. If you are somebody who does not think financial fees makes a difference in your retirement plan, then I need you to pay attention. Listen to this right now. The Department of Labor says that just a 1% fee can lower your retirement savings by 28% over a 35-year time period. So let's break that down with some real numbers and think of it this way. You've got $1 million in your 401k. You lose 25% of it to taxes. You lose over 25% of it to fees. You get to enjoy $500,000 of your million, half of the money that you save. So, Sean, talk to us about this. Are people aware of this, and what can we do about it?
Wow, that doesn't sound good. And it's a really important piece of the puzzle. And most people don't know what they're truly paying. And that's because the fee structure is usually presented in a very confusing way, especially in a 401k. When I ask people, how much are you paying in fees? The answer almost always refers to only what would be called management fees. But there are additional fee categories that are often overlooked. Administrative fees that might be charged for daily plan activities, record keeping, statement generation, tax reporting. There's sale charges, sometimes called commission or loads, that may be charged when purchasing or selling a fund. And most funds charge an internal fee, a percentage of the balance invested. And many of these fees don't show up on the statement, so it's not easy to find all the fees being charged. Jerry and Charlene came into my office for a retirement planning assessment, and I asked them how much their current advisor was charging the IRA and if they knew the expenses in their 401k. And Jerry said the advisor was charging 1%, and Charlene thought her 401k had no expenses. And after running their accounts through our fee filter, we found the IRA was paying 2.2% and the 401k had expenses of 1.4%. And I asked them how they felt about those true amounts, and they said, not good at all. And so I asked them how much they think they should be paying. This is where most people struggle with fees, because costs are only a concern when there's a lack of value. But how do you calculate the value? That's the big question. There are many benefits that a great advisor will bring to a family's quality of life, from transitional years, which is typically starts when they're 10 years from retirement, then throughout their retirement years and into their kids' lives. Individuals should be asking themselves and talking with their spouses about key items that'll help them determine if they should be working with a financial consultant and absorbing those costs, because the alternative is to do it yourself. The key question is, are you the person who will bring your family the best financial outcome? You've got to ask yourself, and do you want to sign up to be that person? Do you have the discipline to get the knowledge and then to keep up with the knowledge needed to be successful? If you didn't intend to be your family's financial advisor during your retirement, then maybe working with one is in your family's best interest. A good financial consultant will communicate their value in their knowledge and experience and in the services they provide to offset those costs. As a fiduciary firm, we manage Social Security strategies. The right strategy could increase spendable income by tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars through retirement. Tax mitigation strategies. We often see six-figure, many times multiple six-figure tax savings, which increases spendable income and legacy to the kids. Income planning is critical. The strategy you use to receive income from your resources could have another six-figure effect on your spendable income through retirement, and then again affect the legacy you leave for the kids. Many benefits that consultants can add will not show up in the investment rate of return, but they can have a significant impact on a family's future outcome. I'll also explain to families when they come into my office the concept of net results, specifically referring to investment rate of return. If an advisor charges a total fee of 1.5% annually and then generates a 1.5% higher rate of return than you could have done on your own, you just paid $0 for their service. And now you have to determine if the rest of the service they provided were a benefit.
Well, let me ask you this, Sean, because I feel like we probably have some listeners out there right now trying to think, when was the last time I even reviewed what I'm paying in fees? So I wanted to ask you how often somebody needs to go back and visit and review what kind of fees they're paying, and what's the best way to even start that conversation with your financial advisor, because it can be an uncomfortable conversation to have.
Yeah, well, individuals should be monitoring fees quarterly, at least annually, just to make sure there's no mistakes and to keep it all transparent. As a firm, we're monitoring fees monthly. It's really important to me that the families we work for have the highest confidence that we're getting it right in all areas. But Casey, you brought up a good question. What's the best way to start the fee conversation with an existing advisor? Look, for some people, that's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Start by figuring out the fees on the statement, and then ask the advisor if there are any additional fees not disclosed on the statement. And then lastly, compare the value you receive from the service the firm provides. Compare that with the cost. And then, as always, get a second opinion. But going back to Jerry and Charlene, they decided to go through our comprehensive planning process to use as that second opinion. And after figuring out their true fees, they wanted to know the value we would bring and the costs associated as a comparison to their current advisory firm. So I want to extend an invitation to you, our listeners, for our first 5 callers. And so you want to do this right away, because for our first 5 callers, we're going to provide you with your own individual financial planning assessment, taxes, that fee filter we've been discussing, income planning, those elements you have to be considering for retirement. And we're going to do all of that with no charge. It's that important. So give our team a call, 559-847-0039. Schedule your own individual financial planning assessment. Again, that number is 559-847-0039.
You do not want to miss out on this chance to meet with Sean and get your big questions answered. He cares about your success. He is excited to help, but spots are limited. So pick up the phone, dial 559-847-0039, and the office will help you find that next convenient time on the calendar. Remember, there is no obligation attached to this either. This is a complimentary consultation. You've just got to call 559-847-0039, and we are standing by right now to take that call. Or, of course, you can always get connected online. We are at Mason Street, retirementinsights.com. That's going to do it for us today here on the show. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Sean and I are going to be back next week. Same time, same place, with more retirement insight for Fresno. But until then, Sean, I'm going to throw it back over to you to take us out today, my friend.
Yeah, it was so fun hanging out with you, Casey, and I love that all of our listeners are tuning in, love hanging out with the community, and I just encourage you to keep coming back. We care about your success, and we're going to keep bringing information that can help with your success. So keep coming back, and we're going to see you next week.
Mason Street Wealth Management, MSWM, is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by MSWM on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Motivate Investments. Registration is not an endorsement by securities regulators. Investment advisory services are offered through Motivate Investments, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. The information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicit solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities. Offered through Sean A. Mason, California, insurance license number 0B54860. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Motivate Investments. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. MSWM is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if MSWM is licensed in your state, please call 559-892-0002.